Welcome to Doom Scroll Patrol, the show where we doom scroll so you don't have to. First of all, Aaron is not here. But we still go on, and what we get into is that World War III is a go, the protests in LA, Elon and Trump's little lovers spat, what to do with the people who have Trump's buyer's remorse, and the most important question we cover, should Hannah come to America?
We hope so. We hope so.
I'm Sam Perez.
I'm Harold Moss.
I'm Hannah Snape.
And this is Doom Scroll Patrol.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah, I haven't done any doom scrolling this week because I've just been out of the house.
Oh, well, you didn't miss much.
Yeah.
What a quiet week in the world it's been.
Yeah, it's actually...
I'm aware of some things that are happening, but I don't have much information.
No, it's actually... I didn't put anything really down, but, there's so fucking much that happened. It's insane.
And that is currently happening.
And even last night, what was it? Fucking Israel attacked Iran?
Oh, you mean World War III? Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, they're trying to start World War III last night. Israel, and I love language and the language of control and the language of framing, because the main headlines you see on it was Israel's preemptive airstrikes on Iran. Preemptive. Because that implies that they're trying to get ahead of something. You know, what in fact it was of course, is Israel's unprovoked airstrikes on Iran. Iran was posing no threat to anyone. There's a nuclear program that, first of all, Ukraine will tell you, if you don't have nukes, or if you had nukes and you give them up, that means anybody can come in and try and invade you. Countries that have nukes, North Korea, they don't get invaded. Right? That's the rules that we've made in this world. And so Iran, why does Iran have less of a right? Israel's got a massive nuclear program. They actually worked with South Africa during apartheid to help South Africa develop nukes, because that's the kind of thing Israel does on the world stage, is train death squads, nuke up apartheid states, and so forth. So it was an unprovoked airstrike, 100 locations. And of course, they were not just hitting nuclear sites, they were hitting leadership apartment buildings and homes. They're killing civilians. They've been doing that in Lebanon ongoing, because Israel assumes that Lebanon is theirs, and it's just a matter of time. And so that's what this is. This is Israel's war of expansion in the Middle East. And there's no other way around it. This is not protecting themselves. Iran doesn't invade other countries. We may have critiques of their government. I certainly do. But they don't invade other countries. Never have. Never been part of what they do. They don't go invading. Yeah, they meddle around like everybody does. They're a country, but they don't invade other countries. This is an unprovoked escalation in Netanyahu's attempt to create greater Israel in the Middle East and take over much of the region over time.
Everything is just great.
Yeah, I saw a few articles. This one here, Iran threatens to attack U.S. forces if Israel strikes nuclear sites. Is there any updates on that?
Well, Israel says they're going to have the last word. What are you going to do when a country, unprovoked, shoots 100 missiles and takes out part of your leadership, takes out your scientists, takes out civilians? What are you supposed to do? Question is this a matter of Trump not able to restrain Netanyahu, or Trump saying, hey, Netanyahu, things are getting messy for me here. Do whatever you want to do. We don't know fully what's going on, but this is entirely plausible that Trump welcomes the distraction.
He really likes distractions.
Yeah.
And also, he likes a lot of them.
I think it's important to note that Iran wasn't just recently, within the last couple of years, found one of the largest lithium deposits in their country. Yeah. So,
Well.
Oh, it's a wealthy country resource wise. What
happens,
screwed over.
What America does when a country finds
if we go back to originals,
we start licking our lips, Just rubbing our hands together like a bunch of jackal.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're gonna just do to Iran what they've done to Congo, and just turn
Probably,
it into a giant mine of suffering and.
Well, if we
expiation.
look at original sins, where was the first coup that the U.S. pulled off?
I don't know.
Little trivia time. First
Oh, it was in
coup,
Iran.
It was in
the
Iran
60s,
against the
right?
democratically elected Mohammad Mossadegh. And the reason they did that,
which is
he was going to nationalize the oil industry to use the wealth to take care of the people of Iran. And so...
Why would he do that?
Yeah, I know, because he wasn't a dick.
yeah,
he
'cause
was
that's what Persepolis is, like the backdrop of the Persepolis.
Well,
that
Persepolis
graphic
takes
novel.
place during the 79... It starts then and then
Oh
the
yeah,
79
because the grandma
revolution.
talks about it.
Yeah.
That's where I remember.
So
What is
Mossadegh was
Persepolis?
going to nationalize
It's
the
a
oil.
graphic novel, and then it's an animated movie. It's actually really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Very cool.
So the first coup the United States took out was overthrowing the democratically elected leader of Iran who was going to nationalize. And of course, it was also with British, the other great coup mongers in the world. And when you look at everything that followed through and the instability in the Middle East, you can go back. I mean, the colonization of the Middle East by Britain, particularly, is the original sin in there. But the overthrow of the democratically elected leader of Iran and the installation of the Shah, which led to the 79 revolution eventually, and led to Islamicists leading that and the ripples out. The U.S., that was everything we've seen is blowback from what the U.S. did back in the 50s.
I would argue that the original sin was when Rome decided to colonize the ancient British tribes, and then they decided to turn into an evil superpower and just go and do that to everybody else.
You
a
could even
trauma
argue
cycle.
the best original sin was when that fucking fish crawled out of the water and then became human beings.
Well, no.
I think that fucker needs to be stabbed.
I would say it's the Roman Empire, and that is probably a fair one, because I think we were talking about this last episode about the study that just states the obvious that between leaving land untouched and letting indigenous folks maintain land, that actually letting indigenous folks maintain the land has better impact on nature. So humans ain't the problem. I know you don't think that, Sam. I'm not lecturing you, Sam, but humans ain't the problem. Colonialism is the problem, and colonizers are the problem.
The white ones.
It was like, what is it that allows Israel to do whatever it wants and no one will stop it? And there's the original formation of Israel was a minority sect of Judaism that consciously aligned with British imperialism. And Israel didn't need to be in the Middle East. There was a lot of theories about where it could be. It was just to get land to create a state. But they aligned with British imperialism, and the British, because of the oil in the Middle East, wanted a dependable military force in the Middle East, and that was defines the relationship between Britain, the United States, and all the imperial powers, that Israel will be the frontline military force that then grew into things like developing nuclear weapons with South Africa, training death squads in Central and South America, doing all the dirty work available. So there's the service that Israel does to the fossil fuel economy and imperialism. That's one. Two, because of that, they've got a lot of money and they buy political systems out. I mean, we can see that in America. AIPAC, which is the Israel lobby, if you oppose Israel, they went in and they knocked people out of Congress, like Bowman in New York, where they spend millions of dollars, don't even talk about Israel, just to wipe out anybody who's critical of Israel. So they've got the money. Three, they definitely got the dirt as well. They have a spy program called Pegasus that's probably on every phone in the world, certainly on every political leader phone, because they also are part of the global techno-fascist leadership. And so that Pegasus, if you look it up, Pegasus is spyware that is on phones. So they have that. And then, Epstein was an Israeli asset. And, we don't know, but I'd sure as hell be shocked if Bill Clinton was not completely implicated, given that we know he sexually abused a 20-something-year-old woman in the Oval Office. He was a serial philanderer, all of this thing. So they absolutely have different ways of targeting and blackmailing. So when we say, why do they get away with it? I'd say it's all of the above, right?
So
Useful to
they
imperialism.
just have the evidence, because I'm pretty sure everyone knows most leaders, maybe all leaders in history, have had some egregious thing that they've done that involves abusing young women,
Yeah,
some
or
kind.
men or
So,
whatever. Just
anyone, young people of all kinds. So, like, I don't know. I just assume the worst.
Yeah, but they
So-
have that's seems likely to be a big part of what Epstein was doing and how he amassed the fortune that he did. Is that he would bring people into compromising situation with underage people. Alan Dershowitz, who's also a buddy of Benjamin Netanyahu, was his lawyer. And so it's pretty likely that Epstein was a Mossad, Israel's spy agency asset, and accumulated damning blackmail information beyond just infidelities into underage people on his island. So yeah, I think it's all of the above.
Well, that's super cool that we are basically being blackmailed.
Blackmailed,
to fight for a
bribed.
country that we shouldn't be.
It sucks here, but you'll get used to it.
So that's quite useful to build up a power base where a devastating war in the Middle East that kills potentially billions is required to bring about your salvation. So for Israel, of course,
That's
Israel's
what
like,
I like my God to do. is
that's what
kill billions of
Israel's
people, so I
Israel's
have
like,
my
these
own
people are
kingdom.
idiots, but they're useful idiots, right? So they're like, because of course those same Christian Zionists think that when Jesus comes back, either the Jews convert or they die and go to hell, right? So they don't give a shit about Jewish people. It's and then the Israelis are like, these people are delusional Fargan Gallatans. Sorry, I'm really bad at fake cursing.
Just bleep it.
Yeah. But they will bring us, and this is also very bipartisan. And I think for Biden, my guess is I don't think Biden actually was sexually abusing underage people. That doesn't seem to be probably the most likely thing.
Yeah.
I think his links were more genuinely believing in American empire and all the horrible stuff that Israel would do with and for the United States. In Israel with Biden, they were, there's now reports that they were shocked that Biden didn't stand in the way of what they were doing in Gaza.
This makes me very sad.
I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but something that's keeps confusing me, like when I see posts about Gaza online or things just showing support, I always see people commenting October 7th, because that's the reason that this is happening, because of what happened on October 7th. And I don't understand the calculation they're making. Like, that was a tragedy. What happened, the people who died, it was a tragedy, but just the sheer numbers compared to what has happened in Gaza, I don't understand how they think that validates what's happening.
They don't think it's an excuse. It's a reason. It's a hook. And let's look at October 7th. First of all,
Well, it's just like remember the Alamo. Like,
Yeah.
the Mexicans killed 100 dickheads out in the desert, and then that gave America the excuse to just slaughter as many Mexicans as they possibly could over the next couple of years. Like, America got its revenge tenfold against the Mexican army.
Well,
so
a lot
like,
more than tenfold.
Yeah, so
thousandfold,
yeah, but it's just like the same thing. It's just like, just give us an excuse to slaughter and we will find it. Like,
every
so
successful battle resistance by native people against America was paid back 1,000-fold.
Yeah, so, and I think that's just this. I think because that's like the colonial imperial mindset. It's like, give us a reason to slaughter and we will take it and we will just run with it forever until like we are stopped by some other outside force.
And then let's also look at October 7th. So a few things that are really quite important. Netanyahu is a key supporter of Hamas, right? Because they wanted Islamicist extremist counterposition to the secular democratic Palestinian resistance so that they could undermine the argument for a Palestinian state. So financial allowances, Netanyahu is one of the reasons why Hamas exists in the first place and continued. It's very likely that on October 7th, Netanyahu let it rip as a reason. Now, this is one of those things, who knows if we'll ever get to the fundamental truth of it, but it seems very plausible. There's also something called the Hannibal Directive, where Israel is more ready to kill Israelis than let them be taken hostage because they don't want the leverage. And a lot of the people who died on October 7th absolutely were killed by Israeli
Didn't they admit to it? They
admitted to it. They said it wasn't they said it was collateral, whatever. So we definitely know that a lot of people were killed. So, and then even now, Hamas recently wanted to come out and say, hey, we don't want political power. We'll step out. Netanyahu said no. He needs Hamas in power to justify the war of expansion. So October 7th was not only not the beginning of the story. The beginning of the story was 1947, the Nakba, when Israel used terrorism and mass slaughter and drove out and took over people's lands, and every step of the way since then, and the bombings of Gaza that have happened over and over and over again, and all of the violent put-downs. But October 7th was a direct result and really the intention of supporting Hamas. It's very plausible that Netanyahu allowed October 7th to happen in order to create a justification, and continues to want Hamas in power so that he can have the bogeyman to justify, for instance, an unprovoked mass bombing of Israel and threatening us all with the entry into World War III.
Another thing about Hamas. So last week or 2 weeks ago, I think I brought it up on one of the episodes, because journalism or independent journalists aren't allowed in Gaza. So they had the medical aides do a bunch of interviews and give like some public statements and things. And a lot of them were asked if they actually saw any Hamas structures or anything that seemed like anything, and they said there was nothing. There's nothing that they ever saw that even where all the places that were bombed and all the things and all the... My brain is dead, but they didn't see any evidence.
Yeah, no, they just manufacture videos where they go to a hospital they bombed, then there's a cut, and suddenly they're in a tunnel somewhere, and this is why they bombed the hospital. It's just it's pure propaganda. It's just explicit lies, manipulation in order to justify genocide. There's really no ambiguity in this. There is no and the whole thing of forcing people to say, well, do you condemn October 7th? Is like, well, yeah, I wish Netanyahu hadn't funded Hamas in the first place and it allowed a democratic, secular Palestinian resistance to, but that's the game they're doing. Now, I think in the long run, they've undermined the project of Zionism, that Jews are increasingly turned against, and Zionists try and pretend that Jews who critique Zionists are not real Jews, which is, kind of what fascism does. Hamas. You're not a real German if you're not goose stepping down the boulevard, right? You're not a real Jew if you're not behind the genocide. problem is that doesn't do much good for the people of Gaza. And look, they are bulldozing houses and shooting people in all of the occupied territories. It's not just about Gaza. And now they've been nonstop bombing Lebanon since this thing began, and now they're bombing Israel. So even if they've undermined the Zionist project long term, that is small comfort to the people being bombed by American bombs, and British and German and some others, but mainly American bombs in the name of Zionism. It's a cold comfort to know that they've probably destroyed their project long term. If you are feeling, my ability to find the humor in all of this week is even weaker than usual.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, has anyone seen any updates on the Samoyed convoy? Have you guys seen anything on that? So there was a convoy that's been being organized for, I think, 3 months. That started in North Africa, Tanzania, I think. And people from all over the world have been flying in and accumulating so they can all march on the Rafah. What is
Rafah border crossing into Gaza.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Rafah border crossing.
It's a follow-up because there was also the flotilla that Israel illegally boarded in international waters, kidnapped everyone, and this is a follow-up to that. And the idea is that people are not going to stop sending convoys and flotillas to try and break the blockade that is starving. There's mass famine in Gaza now. It's just they're starving people to death. The Egypt is, of course, and this is one of the things that the ruling class around the region uses Palestinians as they say a lot of words of support and against Zionism, but like Egypt has been arresting people in the convoy. In the end, they don't actually stand up for Palestinians. It's a show. It's a show by the ruling class. So they're in Libya now. 1,500 people. It's probably going to grow in Libya. I don't think that there's a newer update than that. That was as of yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing this headline: Egypt deports dozens of activists ahead of the global march to Gaza.
Yeah.
So
I think the latest update is a day ago, and Israel urged Egypt to block the convoy, right? So Egypt is doing Israel's work. So when we look at who's actually on the side of the Palestinians, it's definitely not the Egyptian government or the Turkish government. But they are in Libya on their way.
We stand behind you with our hearts and bodies in the great noble struggle you must continue.
But let's also be clear about, so what happened? Trump came in on a promise of mass deportations. However, like most fascists, Trump's not very competent. They've actually been less effective at mass deportations than the Democrats were. Not a point of pride for the Democrats.
Trump is impotent.
Trump is impotent. But the person who was most genuinely passionate about actually mass deporting is Stephen Miller, who I've heard from folks on the ground in LA. He sent ICE. Now, why is it? Stephen Miller felt oppressed in high school because there were so many Latinos and other non-white folks. And, look at him. Nobody liked him. And that was his origin story of being the racism czar, is really what I would say he is for Trump. He is the racism czar. He organizes the racism. So his origin story was feeling oppressed by there being too many non-white people around him in high school and being a horrible sociopathic weirdo and everybody recognizing that and probably stepping away from him. What I would say is Stephen Miller is a high school shooter, but with long-term planning and self-regulation. So instead of going into the cafeteria with an AK, he built his entire life around getting revenge for people not being white for him. And so when the mass deporting was turning out to be a lot harder than they expected, Stephen Miller, and this was an actual meeting that took place, I think about a week and a half ago now, sat down with ICE and said, we need to hit 3,000 people deported a day. And they're like, well, we don't have that many violent criminals. That's like, as we all know, on our side anyways, immigrants are less likely to be violent criminals. They do less of the crime. It's everything they're saying is just a complete lie. It's just Nazi ideology to be able to label people as the other. They're like, we don't have enough. We can't hit those kind of numbers. So he said, start going out to Home Depots and just start rounding people up. Start going to school, graduation, start going wherever brown people exist and start rounding them up. And that is what kicked things off in LA, was they literally just started going up, rounding up brown people at Home Depots looking for work. Because I don't know if you know that, Hannah, but casual laborers will, come around just because Hannah's from Canada. We'll gather
Home Depot in Canada.
Oh yeah, we do.
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
But casual laborers will go to Home Depot where people need help to build things, and that's one of the places where people get work. And so that's what kicked it all off, was these just arbitrary mass detentions of working Americans who have no criminal records whatsoever. Some of whom are citizens. They don't care. Brown
because
skin.
he's not going in. ICE ain't going into like Little Italy, Little Odessa. They're not going there, which I think is very interesting.
They all look mighty suspicious.
Yeah, speaking of, when's Elon getting booted?
Well, I think that was.
They have a spat. Elon
They had a
and
spat.
Trump, but then Elon's
Our
like,
fathers
I'm
had a
sorry.
break.
I'm sorry. You
I
talked about
shouldn't
cutting my contracts that I stole with Doge.
And that's how you know Elon is such a just a wiener.
He is a
'Cause,
wiener.
He could have stood up. I mean, it wouldn't wash away anything he's done.
No.
But it's like at least a little saving grace to stand up to this dickhead of a president. But he couldn't even do that for longer than like 24 hours. He had to be like, oh, I'm sorry, Trump. I'm sorry. I'm so mean to you. And it's like,
I know he said because he was like the reason that where it seemed like things were getting escalating is when he said, to go back to the previous topic, about to write off the bombshell, the reason the Epstein files haven't been released is Trump is in them. And then he deleted the tweet. And I'm guessing there was some off the books communication about, that's the problem, is the president in the United States has a tremendous amount of power and it's being wielded by a corrupt, venal
the
wiener.
worst mafia boss. And
The worst mafia boss ever. Yeah. I mean, so that was a back down.
Loser.
The other side of what's happening in LA is this is part of the Project 2025 playbook, which is to militarize blue states that don't get on board with the new fascist regime. And so the federalizing of the National Guard troops, the bringing in of Marines, this is long planned. This is not a new feature. This has been long planned. I mean, it's in Project 2025. I mean, they said everything they were going to do. And so they're trying to provoke. And, the images that a lot of people are seeing in LA is there's 3 Waymo cars of the driverless cars burning, which
is awesome.
Is a form of resistance against the fascist, techno-fascist trying to replace humans with AI and automation. But that's the image people are seeing, is that they're trying to convince people that there's chaos, rioting. There is no rioting. Of course, anytime there's upheaval, there's a few people go in and steal things. Half of them are probably cops. Whenever there's violence in these things, there are people who are just filled with rage. Like if you took my mom, or you took my spouse, or you took my kids and threw them into a dungeon somewhere and threatened to put them in death camp in El Salvador, yeah, I might lose my cool. If someone came and took my wife right now, I'm not going to promise you I would act in a rational way. So there is genuine rage. And then the cops who have provocateurs will utilize those people and expand on that. So there is a little bit of, But we're talking about most of what happened was in like a little 2-block radius. Like LA is quiet. There's nothing. It's like you have to
also,
go to.
LA is huge.
LA
I don't
is
know if
huge.
People know
you
this.
have to
It's
go
like
and get
huge.
through an hour and a half of traffic to get to find the place where there is anything happening.
Oh, so you got to drive 2 miles?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is
Burn
also,
LA.
we can get into that in another one, but LA was built, the highways were built to segregate LA. All of the traffic and all of the mess was.
Yeah, it's
was
our new
quite-
segment called Everything is Racism. And it's just like traffic, trees in your neighborhood, water, food, groceries, everything. It's all racism.
Is it? I mean,
the
it really
fun
is.
part
I mean,
is that it actually is.
it is.
Yeah,
I mean, no,
that's
it,
what's great
it
about
literally
it.
is. Yeah,
Oh, wow, how fun.
accurate.
Well, another thing about the protest. So I was watching some live streams like when it first started on that first day, I think on Friday, and when those Waymo cars went up in flames, the person I was watching went over to see what was happening, and most of the protesters around that area. Well, first of all, they were trying to get distance because it's a lithium battery that will explode.
Shit, you're right. Oh, we should walk.
It is a lithium-ion battery.
We should walk away. Yeah, we should not. She's right. What are we doing? Yeah, we should not be near the way.
But a lot of them were saying, most of us aren't, this is not our goal.
Oh, that one's on fire too now. Okay, we gotta move away from that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I mean, I could have said it better. Like, obviously people are here just because they care about their community. They're not here to cause shit.
Like this, like the media will just take this, and that's all they're going to focus on. But most of those protesters there, they weren't in favor of like any violence at all. They're all completely peaceful.
Yeah.
Like the only violence that was happening was the armed military coming.
This
in.
was an intentional provocation.
Police thugs that showed up.
This is the intentional provocation, and it was mainly, and that it wasn't even the LAPD mostly. It was ICE, Department of Homeland Security, and FBI were from people on the ground. That's where the violence was really coming from. Not that the LAPD is violent.
Oh
and
yeah, I
corrupt.
forgot how
I'm
much
not
they're. How
I'm
much
not a
they're a bunch
defender
of
of them.
angels.
No, I'm not a defender of them. In this instance, they were more responding when there was some, windows broken and things on fire. In this instance, it was mainly ICE, Department of Homeland Security, and FBI. It was the federal forces out there trying to provoke maximum things. And again, there are some people filled with rage. There are opportunists who will look at instability and come in and just take advantage to do whatever it is that they want to do. And then there are provocateurs who are either of the police or paid by the police. And this is every protest movement. I mean,
Yeah, like that.
There's
Remember,
nothing new under the sun.
Umbrella Hammerman.
Umbrella Hammerman around the George
I forgot
Floyd.
where. Yeah, George Floyd. That was it. Yeah, that guy. What a fucking idiot.
I'm
He
not
was a cop.
familiar.
He was a cop, and he was like in all black with like a mask, and he was holding an umbrella, and he had a hammer, and he was just walking like storefronts and just hitting all the windows. Like it was so methodical. Like it wasn't like protests, right? Like like looting where it's like throw shit in, like grab it, run out. He was just like hitting it. Like I said, it was like very methodical.
Sorry.
It
Sorry.
wasn't like
Technically, he wasn't a member of the police. He was a member of a white supremacist organization.
oh, so the
Same thing.
police.
So yeah, no, but I mean, I'm trying to be accurate that he was a Nazi who probably had a relationship. He was.
Aaron's
a
not here.
provocateur.
We can like we can
go
the
full
facts.
throttle.
Well, I mean, I think it's that the provocateurs are often not necessarily
Yeah,
formally
me
on
and
the police
Hannah are
payroll.
okay with lying, Harold.
I'm a
love a
little
good lie.
autistic. I have a hard time with it. Although I shouldn't say that because I'm going to end up on a registry that'll
Oh,
get me
yeah.
put away for admitting spectrumness. I kind
Well,
of.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to out anybody, but yeah. So accuracy is sort of a tick for
It's
me.
important. Yeah. Well, also accuracy and legitimate information takes away anybody's opportunity to discredit
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
we
yeah.
say. So,
So there are definitely provocateurs. They're using this as an excuse. They're trying to expand. They want this image of chaos that they need to put down. However, at the moment, and this is where what's going on in Israel is terrifying, the thought that we could start World War III so that Donald Trump can protect his ass. It's not generally working. Trump's numbers are continuing to decline. His approval ratings in the United States around immigration have gone down 6 points in the last week on immigration, which was his strong suit. People aren't buying it in large part. And that's why protest works.
Here's a question I have, though. When people are like, his numbers are so low, does it even matter, though? Like, does it? Because, like, he's still in power. He can still do whatever he wants. So when people are like, man, his numbers are so low, like some kind of gotcha, but it's like, yeah, he's still in power. Like, he still has all this, like, military might. Like, it doesn't matter how much we hate him or how much he lies. It's obviously proven no one cares. So, like, what does it even matter? Like,
it does. I think it does matter. Now, the question is, once you have full-blown authoritarianism, it doesn't matter, right? Once you've won the battle of authoritarianism, like, you know, Saddam Hussein was not particularly popular in Iraq. It didn't matter because he had full control over every lever of power, right? Mussolini, you know, eventually it did matter because he got strung up, as every fascist should be. But while we are actually contending in the United States between just old-fashioned corporatist oligarchy with the veneer of democracy and full-blown fascism and authoritarianism, which there's a big difference between. The one's not going to solve our problems long-term, but it's worse to be under a fascist dictatorship. The collapse in support is important because if it lessens the fear of him. So right now, Republicans are afraid to stand up to him, even if they are, because it's more dangerous. Now,
you mean fear as in regards to politicians, right?
It's that across the board, but all of the things. As his support starts to collapse, he looks weaker. If he looks weak, people will be more willing to stand up to him. If people think he's a loser, he knows this. He knows this full well. That you can't, if you show up as a loser, you lose. And he makes other people look like losers and he beats them. If he starts to look like a loser, then the fear of him amongst the media, the corporations, politicians the fear starts to go away and people start saying, ooh. And you're starting to see this around Israel, which is why I think that they've started to lose the big information war. People who were silent are now starting to say, oh, maybe genocide is a bad thing, as opposed to a week ago and every week before that.
Did Mark Hamill walk his back? I remember he was like, I love Israel. Like,
when Piers Morgan is another one. There, people are starting.
Oh, he's like super like, we gotta get rid of them.
No, and that's where I think the public support. It obviously matters when it comes to elections. The fight is to make sure we actually have free elections. There's plausible arguments that Elon Musk could have stolen the last election. We don't know. But if his support collapses, his sense of unstoppable force starts to weaken and opposition can start to be more effective against him. And that's why resistance is so critical. That's why Padilla, I don't know if you saw that, Padilla, who's a senator from California, went into a press conference that Kristi Noem and said, I am Senator Padilla. I'm a senator. I have a question. Padilla went in and they threw him to the ground, handcuffed him. The FBI did. And this is, they're calling it political theater, saying he rushed the stage. It wasn't. The video's there. He identified himself as a U.S. senator, and said he had a question. And if it's political theater, it's good political theater, which is you show up and you resist and you challenge these people. Now, should the Democratic Party have been unified to resist much earlier than this? Yes, but it actually is, because it's a senator, kind of like January 6th, got them all scared because they had to hide in Congress against the mob. Suddenly they recognized how dangerous the mob was. Democrats are moving around this question of Padilla. So the resistance, protests in the streets, politicians standing up, people taking them on, and all of this starting to undermine his popularity does weaken him in his ability to get away with what he's trying to get away with. Because all of his policies are horribly unpopular. They are trying to put through massively increase the deficit, slash Medicare, social spending, education. Elon Musk is in 1,500 babies a day around the world are getting born with HIV because Elon Musk cuts to U.S. aid. 1,500 babies a day.
Like this stuff of like him, like there is like the political theater, and I understand it moves slowly, but it does suck because it's like the people on the ground, like people I know who are, undocumented in here, like it's almost like it doesn't matter like how bad he's doing on the immediate street level, because they're still afraid. Like there's, people are still scared. And I get like his power may be weakening, but it's almost like not fast enough. That's why I'm like, does it even matter? Like I see these people out where I go for walks and I talk to people, and it's like, they don't care because it's immediate right now. ICE is here, ICE is around, and they're afraid. So like maybe in the long run, him having 10 less points is good, but like it's not helping right now.
Well, but what's driving it is the protests on the street, is people interrupting ICE raids, is people documenting that these aren't hardened criminals. These are, that there's.
I guess that goes back to though. That's more like community helping.
It's
almost
all.
Like
it's all of it.
Not like the politicians.
Well, but we have to.
Some of them.
We have to hold the politicians, and they should be resisting as well, like the ones who went down to El Salvador to visit. That was the right thing to do. We should be pushing them to do it. They are driven by the struggle from below, right? So it is. That's why I started. I said the protests are working. Yeah. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The protests are working. The documentation of the fact that they are ripping children out of mothers' arms and throwing the mothers and or the children into dungeons, literally. And people are seeing this. That is not, and as I saw somebody put it today, they said, it drives a lot of us crazy. But when people say that's not what I voted for, we know those of us have been paying attention. In fact, it is. If you voted for Trump, this is what he said he was going to do.
He never said like, I'll be cool to brown people. Like he was always pretty explicit. Like, yeah, I hate these people and we're going to get them out of here.
But if we're going to win those people over, sometimes you have to like connect with that's not what I voted for, because
I feel like that's me personally as like a brown person. That's for other people. I feel they got.
Well, but what about
I can't.
What about the brown people? Because his support went up amongst Latinos.
I know, and I don't like those people. Like
I don't have to like them, but we want to break them away. Is the point? I'm not saying it's your job.
I think it's like at this point I'm too angry.
Yeah,
I don't want to build that bridge. It's almost like, you know what? Fine, go. Like I hope ICE gets your ass. That's like how I feel, because it's like I'm angry at what these people did and because they thought. It's like I don't care what I don't know.
But we've got to. There's a chunk of people in the middle, of people who are low information, and they've been cultivated low information because our media is broken, our education system is broken. People just don't understand what's going on. They're flooded with misinformation on social media. Their entire worldview is distorted, and they heard that Biden was feeble-minded, that it was his fault that there was inflation, and that Trump would do the economy, and that he would get rid of the ultra-violent criminals and MS-13 gangs that were invading the country. And there are people who genuinely believe that, who are now recognizing what was always underneath that, which was in the plan. But how many people even knew what Project 2025 was? The Heritage Foundation plan for fascism that they've been carrying out to the letter since they came in. I'll tell you, I tried educating people around Project 25. I know. It's not even about having sympathy with these people. We don't even have to like them. But the fact is that's the people in the middle that need to break off, the ones who didn't want just horrible fascist stormtroopers in the street kidnapping breaking up families, taking people who are just working, the farms in Florida that are plowing under their tomatoes because there's no one left to pick them. All of the stuff that's going to be happening that they didn't want it. We need to continue to undermine his support. And some of that's going to be welcoming people who either didn't vote. The people I'm sympathetic to are the people who couldn't vote for supporters of genocide in Gaza. And that's another.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Now, and that's I'm not angry with them. I disagreed. I voted against Trump because I'd rather have sane capitalism while we try and undermine capitalism than fucking fascism. But there's also people who just didn't vote, who sat out, who said they were the same, and there are people who bought into it.
Ignorance is bliss.
This, I may not have a fully developed thought right now, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Never stop me.
Here's our new segment. Hannah's not fully developed thought.
Yeah. Okay, but this reminds me a lot of like family cycles, trauma cycles, when dealing with mental health through many branches of family. Oftentimes, the person who has to break the cycle first has to realize what's happening. They have to accept it. And then they have to build that bridge to other family members, even if I'm trying not to get emotional. Even if they are the ones who committed the abuse. If you want to break the cycle, you have to make the bridge so they can be aware. And I've seen this in my own family. A lot of the people who have perpetuated the cycles that everyone's families have cycles of abuse, but they have to come out of it, and then they can start seeing it, and they can start helping other family members. And it's like a ripple, but that the people who are first to break that cycle, they have to have those connections with the people who hurt them. And I see kind of a parallel, like the people who voted for him, they weren't aware that they were, I don't know. Again, it's not fully developed, but
no, I see what you're saying, and I do agree when you frame it like that, because like I do give a lot of grace for people who are suffering from like substance dependency or other mental health issues, because it's like, yeah, there's certain other things going on, and I think it is like, you're right. I do need to give these people grace who are like, well, I didn't know this would happen. And I should. I think there's still just that piece of me that's very angry.
Yeah.
Because like my communities get affected first.
Yes.
And it makes me angry, and it makes me not.
And you
want
should
to.
be angry. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my anger and my emotions are justified.
Definitely.
But I think you're right. Is the next step is like I need to do is like feel those, let it out, and then once I've emotionally regulated, then it's time to like reach out and be like, what can we do to kind of help to get these people over, which is hard. Like, especially again, like when you are a victim of abuse, it's really hard to like, I guess, try to build those bridges because you've been hurt before.
Or even just see the humanity in the other person.
Yeah. I think, and it's also like, it's easy to dehumanize these kind of people because like they're dehumanizing, like you said, my communities. So like I dehumanize them and I'm like, no, fuck them. I don't give a shit. Like, I hope you all die. But like, I don't know. That's not the right way in the long run, but it's hard not to. And I think you're right. Like, this is a time, these people who are like coming around on it, I mean, I don't think they should get off scot-free. I don't think it's like, yep, you were wrong, but like, you know, come on over. We have t-shirts, nothing like that. But it's like, they need to be like, yeah, you were wrong, but like, this is how we can fix the problems.
Well, yeah, and then they need tools to sustain. Once they get to a point where they can see the mistakes that were made, they need to be able to have a community around them where they can have those tools to keep on that path rather than getting, marginalized in their own little circles, and then they just revert back to wherever they were before. Yeah. So I think the anger is necessary. Yeah. The anger is so necessary. That's what's going to make the change. But yeah, having a longer term plan to, I don't even know the words, because I don't want to accept these people. I don't want them to be,
some
part of
some
my
powerful
circles.
voices. I mean, this even goes. We have to, if we can't accept people's ability to change, we're screwed, right?
Yes.
Oppressive systems maintain power by making oppressed peoples enforcers of the system. That's the nature of it. You break people, you traumatize them, and you have them identify with the system that is hurting them. And it's quite intentional. They wrote books and studies in order to do this, and that's divide and conquer from the British Empire. That's using racism to stop a unified working class action everywhere in the world. It's often women enforcing patriarchy in systems, which when we talk about family abuse, often non-abusers are hiding and defending the abusers is very typical. So if we are not ready for people to recognize how they have been manipulated, even if they were willingly manipulated into enforcing the system, we'll never win, right? We need to do it. Now, there are bad actors who need to be isolated and fucking defeated, right? The active ones. We're talking about the people who are more passively in the middle on this. But even nothing I love better than an ex-Nazi.
Yeah.
Who's turned around and recognized and wants to defeat the Nazis, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you got to make the whole turn for me to welcome you in the fold. Not just like, I kind of stopped doing that. I'm happy. Anybody who stops being a Nazi and wanting to do that stuff, great. But to really get in the fold, you got to become an ex-Nazi who's now an anti-Nazi. And those can be very powerful because often these people were brought up and manipulated or from childhood, whatever these things are. But we're also talking about all those people in the middle. And I think that's really the ones that we're talking about for the most part are the more passive supporters, low information voters, people who don't really know. Family, I just was hearing something about an immigrant family. They all voted for Trump and the kid was kind of doing because that's what their parents were telling them, that that he was going to bring down prices and was going to be good for the economy and jobs, and that they had immigrated the right way, and that it was going to be just to make things fair and all of those things. They bought into it. Those are the people that we need to be able to win over. And the trauma thing is interesting because a lot of times finding forgiveness for abusers, it's not about the abuser. It's about healing, you move on. Yeah. We don't hold on to it. And I think it's the same thing. It's not really about them. It's about all of us.
So that's the reality that we have to heal you from, which is why I say you're still in recovery.
But I did want to ask you guys a question that I'm very perplexed by and kind of goes off topic. Not really, but kind of. So I have a boyfriend. And he's American.
Uh-oh.
And
leave him.
I can't. So he keeps coming up to Canada. But I want to go meet his family. But I'm scared to go to America. But like what?
I would probably previously have had a much blither answer to that.
What is it what are the fears you have?
For me personally, I don't think there is a huge feel like the worst case scenario, I get detained, and they interview me at the border and then they deport me. Yeah. That's like the worst case scenario. So there's not a lot of danger for me personally, but I have an inner conflict of, if I decide to use my privilege as like a white Canadian woman to just go down there and probably be fine.
A tall white woman, as we have found out.
Yes.
They might be giants tall, kind of, ice giant descendant tall.
Like, I don't know. There's just so many layers to it because, like, our own government has advised that Canadians don't go down to America. And I've seen so many firsthand accounts from other Canadians. Like, I was stopped and interviewed for hours. They went through all my devices. They went through all my information, and they didn't let me in. Like, so
I think you're right that your danger is that is the danger, and it's probably not super high. I think you should fuck borders or fudge borders. God, not cursing is very hard for me, especially when it comes to things like borders, borders and Nazis. You shouldn't be limited by that.
Right.
I think you should take every precaution, which is a burner phone. You don't have social media accounts. You are on a podcast where we talk about the government. It's entirely plausible that they will.
Well, and Aaron, that's what Aaron mentioned. He's like, because of like his social media presence, he was like, I don't think I can go to America for a while.
Yeah. So that, but
I can be a test dummy.
Well, I mean, the fact that you don't have, because they'll probably first just kind of look for your Twitter feed and things like that, whatever it is, and you don't have that, have a burner phone. They will look through it. So you've got something that you have no concerns about what they're going through. And probably the worst case is you get detained and sent back. Right. Health-wise, since you've got some health stuff you deal with, what would it mean were you to be detained for a week or two? Right?
Yeah.
I think you should be ready for that and what that might mean.
Your medications.
Right.
Yeah.
But chances are you'll come through without a problem but there have been white Canadians detained, right? So it's not outside of the realm of possibility. But I think that, I don't think there's a moral thing of you using a privilege because you live a life in which you want everyone to be free, genuinely, and you use your voice and your energy to go towards that. So it's not like having a music festival outside a concentration camp, which was October 7th to bring it back, right? Where literally that's what they were doing there was a genocidal ghetto and they had a music festival hundreds of yards away from it. That's not what you're talking about doing. You're talking about doing what we should all be able to do, which is to travel to meet a significant person's family.
Well, it's not just that. Like I would want to probably stay down there for an extended period of time, which means
America
I would
will
probably
be
need a work visa or
will be get a little bit percentage better if you show up. We'll just be a little bit of a better country for that period when you are here. We'll get a little bit of the Hannah quotient will absolutely, improve the country.
Oh, why, thank you. I'll do my best. But
take every precaution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think just because I've just been too scared to actually think about how the full process would go and what precautions I would need to take,
it would be uneventful. It would probably
nothing would happen.
Probably uneventful. But take a clean phone. Most likely what would happen. Take a clean phone. Do all the things. Just where would you be over in the East Coast at all?
Yeah, I would probably be right near you, actually.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm not going to try and influence your decision because you need to make your decision based on all of your considerations. But I would be thrilled.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Because I would have a higher proportion of improvement because my non-Hannah to Hannah ratio would be fundamentally transformed. As a nation, it will have a positive impact to you coming in. But it's a smaller percentage. But in my immediate vicinity, the non-Hannah to Hannah ratio would be fundamentally transformed. And that would be a massive improvement in my life. So I am for all the highest possible Hannah quotient is what I am down for.
All right, good. I'll take that into consideration, and I'm doing it anyways. I can't not do it. I just wanted to see what your guys' thing was. But
I think Harold's right. It's like it's one of those like hope for the best but prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
Like I would be like, yeah, I'd prepare. I'm like, yeah, I may be detained for a week. What does that look like? How does that affect my schedule, my health, all that? I would prepare for that, and hopefully they're not like, well, Anna, you got to go to El Salvador now. So
hopefully no. But I mean, yeah, if I get deported back, and then I guess I just break up with him and I never see him again. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you know what? That's also fine.
No, it's not. I refuse.
There's plenty of fish in the sea. The Canadian seas.
I don't want any Canadian fish. I've tried those. It's not my cup of tea. But thanks for your input.
Thank you for listening to Doom Scroll Patrol. Like, comment, and subscribe to Undeniable Network for more content and to support our work.